Hello, Roadrunners. Welcome to episode 292 of the Alamo Audible podcast. I am Adrian Bermudez, one of your co-hosts, joined alongside with Javi Cardenas, and we are here to talk about a massive 57-20 bowl win for UTSA over FIU, as well as a couple of other updates like transfer portal stuff and what the Roadrunners need to get down packed as they head into 2026, areas of focus, if you will. Good morning, Javi.
Good morning. We talked about doing this in either the evening or at night, today in the morning. I think if they would have lost, I think that 14-0 would have kept going. We might have to done that one at night just to kind of capture the feelings. But luckily, they really turned it around there by the end.
Dude, what a horrendous, embarrassingly horrendous first 5.5 minutes of that ball game. FIU goes up 14-0, but the fashion in which they did it was like shocking, right? Jaw dropping. And then I guess maybe nothing's too shocking for the UTSA runners in 2025 because we were kind of watching it like, oh gosh, here we go again. Thankfully, after 14-0 start, UTSA settles in and goes on a 57-6 run for the rest of the game. But it's just like Owen said in his post-game press conference, which I thought it was hysterical. And I don't know if he realized like the subtweet jab that he made on his own squad. He said, this game was a true reflection of the season. Went down early, started slow, and then picked it up. I was like, yeah, that's about right, Owen. That's exactly right. What the hell
Yeah,
happened?
like that started was just like I think Owen summed it up perfectly. That was an encapsulation of the Roadrunners, right? Like just didn't look disciplined, didn't look motivated, just bad on defense, special teams, whatever. But I mean, by the end, you kind of just notice pretty quickly that the talent, the discrepancy between the two teams. And I made a tweet, but you could just tell like on the screen that the level of talent that UTSA had on their team is just vastly superior to FIU, even with the depth issues. The first and even whatever is left of the second string, it was just significantly better than FIU, and it just wore them down. It would just wore them down, and combine that with good play calling on offense by Hunter Riddiman. I'm sure we'll talk about that. And on defense, the defensive line, pressure with four, with three, depending on the set, something to consider as we're going to talk about maybe for next year. Does Jeff Traylor have to reconsider his heavy rotations on defense? Because we saw how impactful just kind of the consistent group, right, being out there. What that did, it almost allowed them to get into a rhythm. Whatever that might be, right? Whether just the reps kind of leads to just more consistent play. But the defensive line, even with all the guys that were out, the 2-3 guys that were out, I mean, John Jones, Big Baby Buxton, just man, that was probably the best game they've ever played, right? And it hadn't started for most of the year. So, yeah, overall, a good end to the year to a season with mixed feelings. I think this is definitely not the way most fans anticipated it going. But hey, man, any season you end with hardware is it's a good end, right? So just got to build on it for next year.
Very true. Very true. Traylor goes 3-3 all time in his 6 bowl appearances. So at that 500 record, UTSA now 3-4 all time as a program in bowl games when you go back to 2016 New Mexico Bowl. So Owen, fantastic in his bowl appearances. I think he's 3-0 now. So Traylor also salvages another winning season in his career as a head coach, has not had a losing season, 7-6 for the second year in a row. But you said something at the beginning there, Javi, about the talent differential, and I want to spend some time on that because this is, at the end of the day, it's a depleted and hobbled FIU Panthers team. And even whenever they were firing on all cylinders, they were still just a mid-tier Conference USA squad at best, right? I mean, this was a 500 middle of the pack Conference USA team, very injured, very depleted from transfer portal declarations. UTSA handled business in the way that they should against this team, right? Whenever we look at it on paper, but the talent differential was was huge. I mean, there was a different speed and a different ferocity that UTSA was playing at. Once they settled in after those first 5.5 minutes of terror, we finally started to kind of jolt into the playing rhythm, and that's another really weird consistent item throughout this season, and maybe even going back into last year with Jeff Traylor. But the slow starts, just like not being ready to come out of the gates, especially when you see the talent differential that was on the field. It makes that slow start all the more frustrating, and it angers you as a fan because you shouldn't be starting like that.
Yeah, I saw a tweet from a Tulane fan last night saying, "How did this UTSA team only win 6 games?" And I think that's like if you were to recap the season, that's kind of the phrase to use, right? How did this team only win 6 games? Because you could see it, man. Like this team was talented. I know they were hurt, and there was a couple other stuff that happened along the way, but man, just you wish what would have happened if they didn't, lose it against Texas State and Temple, and uh, you know, I don't know, man. It's gonna be a weird one to look back on. Last year kind of made a little sense just because of the transition, of all the guys I had left. This year is definitely more disappointing than last year, I think. But it's really going to be a big, big, big offseason for Jeff Traylor and company, right? Um, I think if you ask Jeff, he would say that a 7-6, 500 type season is unacceptable. And we all know uh the budget, or however you want to put it, like the
Mm,
fact that UTSA is not in the top tier of the American in terms of resources at the moment. But um I think UTSA can still put a very competitive roster together to be up there with UCF, Tulane, Memphis, especially with the amount of turnover that we've seen and we're going to keep seeing when the transfer portal opens here in a couple days. Man, there's just going to be so much turnover for all the top American teams. So if UTSA can hold on to this core on offense, being McCown, McEwen, Henderson, and Overmeyer, man, I think they're gonna be in a good spot. The bad thing is that I think they're gonna have to rebuild the defense again.
mhm.
And it's gonna is it gonna be the same story where Jeff is in the getting out of fall camp saying, "Oh well, it's gonna take us a couple games to get going on defense." That's just not gonna fly anymore, man. Like you can't you it does not you can't afford it to give you a couple games to get going when you've had the seasons that you've had. So
You
big
just
off
can't.
season coming.
You just can't. You just can't. And it's something that Jared echoed on this podcast a couple of times throughout the year, pounding the table, talking about the dollars and the budget and the NIL. Whenever I think more than half of our losses were against teams that had less NIL funding than UTSA did, or no NIL funding whatsoever. When we look at a service academy like Army, so it's just not true. It's just a false narrative at this point to be banging that table because you lost to teams that have less dollars than you. So what are we talking about dollars for? Whenever we're not geared up to play the first 5.5 minutes against FIU, right? And a lot of that was the same issues that we've been having. Look, FIU had a fantastically scripted opening drive, um, and it's something that Justin Burke has been praised for on this podcast. That his scripted drives are really really good, but then whenever it's time to actually get into the gameplay and start to make those adjustments, we start to kind of see it get a little bit mm, rough around the edges. I don't want to say derailed, but rough around the edges. And FIU certainly had a really, really good first off opening drive scripted. It totally got our guys by surprise. There was like some misdirections happening. Jeff Traylor even mentioned it in his post game presser. But then the punt return, where we look 4 or 5 missed tackles that were just with by. I mean, maybe 3 missed tackles, but 4 or 5 defenders that were right there that could have made the tackle altogether, and just, I mean, hardly got a hand on the guy. Um, that tackling issue, man. I mean, this is something that Jeff Traylor has had as a problem year in and year out throughout his entire tenure. And we know, more soft contact practices. We never really go full on tackling in practice, try to keep guys preserved. You talk about, hey, maybe he doesn't need to be rotating the defensive line so much next year. Maybe he needs to start practicing a little bit harder with contact, because the tackling still continues to be a real big issue for this team. That's something that is going to be critical going into 2026. You talk about the rebuild. I thought it was really interesting from Owen McCown saying he kind of made his declaration that he was going to be here in 2026. He was asked about it. He said, "I'm going to be here," and in fact, he's hitting the recruiting trail hard with his own roster. He's talking to Devin McEwen and Patrick Overmeyer. He actually name dropped them in the post game presser, and the other guys on the roster trying to keep them here. He's like, I'm in full retention mode right now, trying to keep guys on staff. That's really, really great to hear from Owen. It's also scary to hear as a UTSA fan and kind of worrisome because this is the largest exodus I think we've seen as far as impact players. When we look at that defensive side of the ball, Javi, we've got Davin Martin, KK Meyer, Kenny Ozawalu, uh, Childers Otutu, uh, who am I missing? Damian Wimberly, uh, Jeremy
And Jimmy
Wyrick,
Wyrick, who got an interception, oddly
Jimmy
enough,
Wyrick, who
last
had a
night.
great game last night. Jimmy Wyrick, yeah. This is a mass exodus compared to how Traylor has kept his roster together in the prior years of transfer portal. This is tremendous.
Yeah, and I find it weird, and again, I guess we can jump a little bit more to portal talk too. That they're been on defense, and not on offense, where there's a coordinator and wide receiver change. Or who knows? Maybe today we'll see some more announcements, which tends to happen after bowl games, right? The guys kind of announce after their games. But yeah, just weird, man. And not weird. I guess I think Traylor always said it was coming. He alluded a couple of times that they were going to have more turnover because of the change in coaching style. So he alluded that that would probably lead to more turnover. So which is what we're seeing. You could argue is turnover on a 500 team a bad thing, right? But you are going to miss some key pieces, right? Especially Jimmy Warwick at safety. Something big to consider too is that the fact that Owen McCown is coming back. A lot of teams dedicate a huge chunk of their budget to quarterback, right? For obvious reasons, it's the guy that touches the ball every single time on offense. If UTSA can get Owen on a lower money number, that will probably allow them to spend more money to keep the Overmyers, the Hendersons, the McEwens, the Hardys, whoever they want to retain on offense and on the defensive line. Just because Owen is able to stay on a lower number, whereas maybe like East Carolina or Tulane have to spend a big chunk of their roster money on a quarterback. So that's always the advantage that UTSA has there. But yeah, man, um again, I think we've said it a couple times. This offseason is going to be critical for Jeff. He's been comfortable, I think, with the guys he's been working with the guys he's on his roster. And I think he's going to have to start getting a little uncomfortable if he wants to get back to, winning 8, 9, 10, double-digit games and be in contention for conference championships.
Well, totally. I mean, is it a change in coaching style that's leading to an exodus, or is it the fact that guys don't want to play for no money on a 500 team? If UTSA is an 8 or 9 win team, does the exodus look like this? I highly doubt it, dude. Highly doubt it.
No,
There's no way.
no, I
No,
think
no one's.
there's some truth to that.
Yeah, no one's mad about running laps in practice whenever you're a 9 win team and competing for a conference championship. But when we're 6-6 and we have the same issues over and over again, I can go be 6-6 somewhere else and make a bag, or at least more than what I'm making here. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. It's simple math for a 20-year-old collegiate athlete, right? So, that's interesting. On Owen's note, how well did Owen play last night? 18 for 28, 295 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also put the ball on the ground twice. He had some low passes, some passes behind, kind of inconsistent because there were some drives where like he was super sharp throwing the ball, and then other drives where not so good. There was a beautiful fade route to the corner to McEwen. There were a couple of lasers down to Patrick Overmeyer, and then there were some that were just like too high, too low behind the receiver. And it's just one of those things where it's hard to kind of gauge how well did Owen play last night in your opinion.
I think he did good. I think you're spot on. There was a really good corner fade route that he hit it on the money, and then there was almost an exact same situation where McEwen cooked the quarterback, but he just overthrew it. Right, like McEwen was just standing by himself in the end zone, kind of like what the heck. Um, I mean, I think it was a classic Owen McCown experience where he he hits most of the time, but he has some big misses at times. We did see him use his legs one time, and we were like, oh man,
Hmm.
where's that been all year? So hopefully he can get healthy and bring that back to his arsenal next year. He yeah no, but I think he did great, right? 3 touchdowns. He was 5 yards away from 3,000 yards for the year, I believe. I
Man.
think he ended the year with 30 touchdowns and less than digit interceptions, I believe. So I mean, it's a solid season, man. Like I know he wasn't perfect, but you really can't. I mean, for a G6 quarterback, you're gonna be pretty happy if he's throwing 30 touchdowns and between 3 to 5,000 yards. So yeah, man, it's good. It's good for UTSA. Can he be better? Of course. I think if he gets healthy, he can kind of go back to, or maybe we can finally see his final form, right? Like,
Mm.
what does a senior Owen look like? 100% healthy, able to use his body normally
Wow.
without him limping around. Like you always see him on the sideline. Poor guy's like limping around. He has like a giddy in his step all the time. So, um, yeah. So hopefully he can get healthy, get him running for spring ball, and we'll see.
We all had our assumptions. We all had our assumptions that he was sort of hobbled, and it finally kind of like was confirmed through Traylor towards the end of November that he had been hobbled all year long. He is kind of like a natural mobile quarterback, and he doesn't do that as much in 2025. And part of that is him being hobbled. I think some people were wondering, like, did the offensive staff or the coaching style sort of like take away that mobility, like they didn't want him running so much? But I don't think that's the case. I think he just wasn't 100% with his legs and with his body to allow him to run the way that he does. The work that Owen McCown did this year is crazy, Javi, and I'm glad you bring up the cumulative statistics. He's uh, literally 2/3 of completion ratio, 67.6 completion percentage. It's 2,995 yards. It's 30 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. And this guy is playing at 85%. 30-7 is a wild touchdown to interception ratio. I mean, people would pay a guy millions of dollars to come to their program and do that. And the fact that he's doing that at 85%, and now the hypothetical that you just brought up, him being 100% next year, it's like the opposite of Frank Harris, right? Where Frank Harris was like
Right.
getting
Kind
more
of.
and more hobbled.
Yeah.
Yeah, by his senior year, he was just beat up, dude. He was so beat up. But here we could see a senior Owen actually at full health, and maybe for the first time at full health since he was a sophomore, right? Or even a redshirt. So it's a really incredible situation to actually think about. You know
And
what else he did really good? What's that?
I was saying, like, now that's why this offensive coordinator hire is so important. And there should be a good chunk of candidates, man. Like, what offensive coordinator wouldn't want to work now that he's coming back, right? Like, what offensive coordinator up and coming, maybe, or the guy that's kind of looking to move up, who wouldn't want to come work with Owen, knowing that he can do that or more. And then on top of that, can you retain that top talent? I think that's why I think you mentioned it a couple times on the podcast that Jeff Taylor is almost like giddy, right, about the offensive coordinator names that he's seen, because there should be a line of people, man, that want to come in next year and kind of put their spin on this talent, because they know what they
Mhm.
can produce, right, if they're hitting on all cylinders.
He's so good. Owen's talent level is so good. I mean, when he throws the ball well, it's really a thing of beauty to watch. And I think also it's very clear to me that he's a strong team captain. To be able to weather these back-to-back 500 seasons and like all the tumultuous up and down that's come with it, for him to stay as level-headed and as strong as he does, it just goes to show that the guy's got the fabric. What is the championship fiber, as Jeff Traylor likes to call it? But who wouldn't want to take this quarterback and see what he can do underneath your tutelage? And it's something that we've been waiting for as UTSA fans to see Owen McGowan in his peak form, right? His ultimate form. His what's the Transformers name? I can't. So what he also did really well last night, distribution, man. There are so many guys that had several catches, so many receivers that were getting touches. Jamel Hardy, 2 catches, Patrick Overmeyer, 2 catches, DJ Allen, 3 catches, AJ Wilson, 3 catches, Devin McEwen, 6 catches, all over the place. Finding his targets all over the place. Really good on his reads. Pass the ball out to everybody. And What receivers stuck out to you, Hobby? We saw a couple of nice little flashes from DJ Allen and AJ Wilson. AJ Wilson's kind of been showing it all year. DJ Allen's one of those guys that I've kind of been jonesing for him to break out, and we still haven't quite seen it. We didn't see it in 2024. We didn't really quite see it in 2025. I still feel like it's kind of there though.
Yeah, and I think he's still coming back from that knee injury from last year. But I think the guy with the highest upside is Hardy, right? You see it, man. Like he's explosive, he has good hands, but he's still young. So I think next year if he sticks around, and unfortunately you can always have to like put that disclaimer on there, right? Like, are they going to come back next year? But if he's here next year, he's a guy that can kind of step into that role. Allen, if he's like again, if he sticks around, I think another year removed from his knee surgery. AJ Wilson, I think, still ended up averaging like 17 yards a catch, which is pretty wild. I believe he did the same thing at a Houston Christian. So he's a big play guy, right? Yards after the catch, big play. So I mean, he's going to be crucial. Well, and all the guys you mentioned are technically scheduled to come back next year, by the way. So none of the guys that got the ball distributed to are seniors, right? So
Right.
again, can you hold on to the majority of your core and kind of keep everything kind of going, rebuild your offensive line a little bit? Most of those guys are coming back as well. You got to do some work there on the tackles, but I think they got some good recruits coming in that signed in December. So there's room for optimism on offense for sure. I think if I was a UTSA, like if you're talking to a UTSA fan, like, hey, what do I need to get excited about? Is the possibility of this offense coming back is just now they're gonna have to spend some cash money to keep this group together. Shifting focus a little bit on defense, on a stat that stuck out to me on defense, the penalty number, man, that was crazy. 100. I don't know what the final number, but I know it was over 100. Kind of crazy to win by the margin that they did with the amount of penalty yardage that they got, but it's probably because of FIU going forward on fourth down 100 times and only converting once, I guess. Um, but yeah, man, just something to keep an eye on. Again, the defense would big yardage, but I guess it's to be expected with the turnover they had.
No, it's not. It's such a perfect UTSA football game for 2025. It literally is the slow start, the getting settled in, and then boat racing these guys. 11 penalties for 133 yards. You gave FIU 133 yards on 11 penalties, most of which were personal fouls. These weren't like ticky tacky, dude. These are DPIs, these are late hits, these are, I mean, just like sloppy, gross personal foul penalties, man. Defensive holds, like it can't happen. It just can't happen at that rate. And it's so easy to cover up and sweep under the rug whenever you win by 37 points. Penalties have been an issue going back to the Frank Harris era, and it was easily swept under the rug because UTSA was winning and winning and winning and winning. Um, it's not going to work if you want to be competitive in the American Conference. And I think that's proven itself in the 2-3 seasons that we've been in this conference already so far. In USA, you could get away with it. You cannot get away with it here. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
For all we talk about NIL, committing penalties is free, man. Like doesn't cost money to not commit a penalty, so that's something that they can fix without having to spend a lot of money. Someone that did stand out on defense is Chapman at corner. They kept throwing his way. He committed a few PIs. Some of them
Yep.
were a little bit questionable, I think. But man, he stuck with it, man. I was honestly really impressed how he was able to stick with it. Got a couple pass breakups. He got that pick two, right? After they scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
So just very honestly impressed by him. If he can kind of hone in this offseason and get ready for next year, he should be able to lock down one of those corner spots. And then with his brother, who's by all reports better, right? The better cornerback. Man, it's exciting that the thing what those two can do with in their careers here at UTSA if they can kind of lock down those spots. So for as much as we talk about like, oh man, what a lackluster season, there's definitely things to be excited about. It's not all doom and gloom. It's not like they had like a 3-4 game win season, right? So there were still some
Right.
good things. Maybe not as good as we wanted it to, but definitely, if I'm a UTSA fan looking at next year, there's a lot to be excited about.
we're on the cusp, right? But I think that's what is the frustration stems from, because it felt like we were on the cusp in 2024. So to continue to be right there on the cusp throughout 2025 and just not get over that hump, I think that's the real killer for fans and for this team. Let's talk about the pass rush and how fantastic they were last night. We talked about FIU being depleted, being hobbled. They were out two guys at offensive guard, and Antonio Tripp and Daniel Mitchell. But UTSA was also out a lot of their defensive starters. Uh, the guys that were in played fantastic. FIU was under massive lethal threat in the backfield last night. I mean, these guys were just all over Pazinski and the other two quarterbacks that were playing. They had three quarterbacks in last night, but Joe Pazinski was under distress, bro. I mean, he could not buy a half a second in that backfield.
Yeah, honestly, John Jones, I would think one of his best games as a Roadrunner, right? So that's fantastic that he was able to cap off his career with such a dominating game. Big Baby Buxton again, just fantastic. A couple of the walk-on, Sylvester and a couple other guys had solid games as well. The linebacker core with Shot Bangs, gosh, man, I I wonder how much Traylor would give to have one more year of Shot Banks
Mm,
anchoring down that middle linebacker spot. But yeah, man, just some good stuff. And unfortunately, Jimmy Wyrick is on his way out. But man, he really picked it up at the end last half of the year. It's a shame he's not coming back. By all reports, he might be going to a team he might be playing in that stadium again. Is what I guess what I'm alluding to.
mm, mm,
So
mm.
something to keep an eye on there. But yeah, man, it would have been nice to see Kenny Azawalu and Chad Tutu and those guys out there. But you got to do what got to make your opportunity, work, right? So those guys did it. And yeah, just it's for all the bad things of the transfer portal, it was good to see the guys that stuck it out and have a solid performance.
Well, before we get into areas of focus for 2026, let's talk about the big storyline, the one that everyone probably wants us to be talking about. Hunter Ritterman calling the plays, an offensive coordinator last night for UTSA. Um, a very we talked about how good FIU's scripted opening drive was. UTSA's opening drive was horrendous. We ran like a double reverse receiver pass. We ran
With
like
AJ
two
Wilson
jet
throwing it, by the
sweeps.
way.
What was that? It was really, really, really ugly. And then all of a sudden, he starts to like pick up the tempo. UTSA was moving very, very fast on offense, kind of reminiscent of those Frank Harris days, and they were jamming. They were jamming. They were gelling, and looked really, really good under Ritterman's play calling after that first offensive drive. What did you think?
No, I mean, it was great. They were attacking vertically. They were really taking advantage of, and I think the announcers kept harping on it that FIU was worried about their cornerbacks being able to tackle on the edge. So that's why you saw a lot of side to side stuff with Henderson and some of the wide receivers. Man, if Amador would have played, I think he would have had a freaking monster game. um
Man.
just with like those like bubble screens and short outs, right? And having guys miss. But no, man, it was exciting. I mean, it's whenever your first game and you put up that many points with there wasn't like a ton of defensive scoring, right? It was just pretty much all the offense. So no, man, for a debut it was a fantastic from Hunter Ritterman. um it really seemed like he maximized his talent, which is, I think, a frustration of the fan base is why don't we get the ball to our playmakers? And boy, did he, right? McEwen, Henderson, running the ball when downhill with Peterson and hitting Overmeyer for
Yeah.
a few times and one for a touchdown. Man, it seemed like he maximized his talent. So that's all you can ask for when it's your first game, and look what happened.
Yeah, I got a lot of guys really involved well, not just receiving wise, but rushing wise. Willie Henderson, Mario Peterson, really, really good on his 8 carries, almost 5 yards per carry. Bryson Donnell was a stud. It looked like his leg injury was pretty nasty. And Jeff Traylor said that him and what was the other
Wilkerson.
leg Wilkerson Those two, Jeff Traylor said in the postgame, it does not look good right now for Bryson Donnell and Marcellus Wilkerson. So uh, fingers crossed, it's not too bad because Bryson Donnell and Amarian Peterson and Willie Henderson in the backfield was really really nice last night. Bryson Darnell is one of those guys that you could just tell he's jonesing to just break out, and he's there. You need it. You need it. On that note, Robert Henry out of the game. That was Jeff Traylor's decision to sit him out. He said Robert wanted to play, but due to NFL draft stock, couldn't risk him getting injured. Sat him, sat him. Blackshire is coming off of a knee surgery, and then David Amador foot injury through ECU and Army games, and he seems to be hobbled regularly, unfortunately. That's one of those guys we talk about. You need Owen at 100% in 2026. You'd need David Amador 100% in 2026 because those two guys together are an unbelievable connection. We saw it last year whenever they were both healthy, what they were capable of, especially in that November to remember of 2024. So there's a lot. There's a lot that needs to go right for the Roadrunners, but there's already things that are. You look at the massive coaching staff shakeups that have happened to the top conference dogs, right? Tulane, Memphis, USF, UNT, all those guys losing their coaching staffs. And UTSA here poised with their guy Jeff Traylor at the helm. Like all the chips are falling for you to be able to take advantage of a very new looking American conference as far as coaching staffs go. I mean, these powerhouses like Tulane and Memphis, you don't expect them to take too many a step back because they've just done a really good job at establishing that standard. But a head coaching change is a head coaching change. It's a massive shakeup for a program. Uh, and I think USF has raised their bar, right? But I have to imagine that you're going to see some drop. They haven't been doing it long enough, consistently enough to just be able to just change head coach and come right in and stuff the back. I was always like, the door's wide open for UTSA with all of their consistency, quarterback and head coach and an offensive core and their playmakers or ball carriers, skill position guys to go out there and completely run with this thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a little bit of a power vacuum right now, and UTSA, like you said, is poised to kind of fill that gap if they can, right? Like you said, there's always going to be, um, questions when a new staff comes in. Um, I'm sure they'll be fine, but yeah, I mean, you just never know when with the new staff and honestly new rosters because most of these teams are going to have almost like 50 to 60% roster turnover, if not more. So
Sure.
yeah, man, it's if like again, we talk about consistency. If Jeff Traylor can kind of pull the right levers and put people in positions that they need to be in, UTSA should be one of the top dogs in the conference. Again, should, right? It's and just like we've
Mm.
been saying the last couple of years, UTSA should be doing better. They just got to do it now. So yeah, man, it's exciting. Like I said, there's things to look forward to next year, with the roster, with the way the conference is kind of shaking out. It's just now they just have to capitalize. It's the big one. They just have to capitalize.
Let's look at that. I mean, yes, you got to you have to start well in the game and in the season. You've got to minimize the penalties. But whenever we look at roster construction for 2026 and how critical that is, offense, I think there's more of a focus of trying to retain than going and getting, right? Because if you can keep a Devin McCune, if you can um, have Owen McCowan talk these guys into sticking around, uh, I think that the offensive core as it stands is really, really good. What areas of offense would you want UTSA to address outside of who's already here? What positions really sort of need the attention? And then we can get on a defense.
Yeah, I think definitely on offense, the offensive line, they brought in some guys, right, to kind of plug and play at defensive tackle. I think if we've learned anything is that you need consistent depth at all those spots. So just kind of building on that. And then the rest is on offense is really just depending on who leaves, right? If there's some movement on in the wide receiver, if Overmeyer leaves, if Henderson or whoever else kind of moves on, then you kind of have to go attack those spots. But for the most part, it's kind of status quo on the skill positions, unless there's some movement. But the defensive line is just trying to kind of filling those gaps for Kamar Missouri, right, at tackle. And with the guys that are coming in, on paper it looks good. Hopefully they already kind of addressed that. But on offense, it should be pretty status quo unless there's movement.
Right, right, yeah, and, I think they even mentioned on the broadcast about Devin going into the portal, but I hadn't really heard Patrick Overmeyer's name until Owen said it in the postgame, and he's like, "I'm working on keeping Patrick here," and I was like, "Wait a minute, what?" So, yeah, if you can retain those skill position guys, and like you said, we brought in some hogs, if you will, and if those guys pan out, offense, I think, is gonna be fine without too much shakeup. It just depends on getting the coordinator hire right and him being able to do the most with the offensive staff. And it's now that we're post bowl game, Javi. Like, what are your expectations for timeline for that offensive coordinator announcement?
I mean, I'm sure interviews happen before the bowl game. I think between now and when the portal closes, there should be something announced. I mean, unless they're playing for a playoff team, which I guess could be the case. But if they're not, then I don't see why that couldn't be announced. In the next couple days, honestly.
Right.
I mean, maybe there's some final interviews now that Traylor is back in town. So maybe there's some of that. But I mean, yeah, like I said, I don't think there's really a reason why they couldn't be announced in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I'd really like to see it by the end of this weekend or by Monday, right? Definitely before NYE. Unless you're getting a CFP offensive coordinator. I don't think that's the case though. All right, defense. We do have the depletion. We kind of mentioned the names of the guys that we've missed, but there's a lot. There's a lot of starters of depth chart guys that are gone from UTSA's defense. Again, it's Davin Martin, KK Meyer, Kenny Ozawalu, Chad Otutu, and Damian Wimberly. And now Jimmy Wyrick mentioned going to portal as well. What is the first area of focus? What is the priority level, right? If we're going 1 through 3, 1 through 4, as far as positions are concerned.
Number 1 and 2 and 3 maybe has to be pass rush, right? They need enough outside linebacker to deliver consistent pressure. I think that's something that was massively lacking this year, and you saw right the defense suffer because of it. I think after outside linebacker, you look at inside linebacker. Right now, the Shed Banks is moving on, and Blackshire as well. You need bodies at that inside spot. And then along the defensive line, you need depth, right? So you're going to miss a Cheto Tutu, Wimberly, and also Wally. So you pretty much have to go for one in replacements there, right? You just the way that they like to play their defensive line, they need bodies that can produce right at those spots. So I'm sure we're going to see a lot of visits that, with defensive linemen coming in the next couple of weeks. Then after the front seven, I mean, you kind of just have to work yourself back, right? I think safety's a big one.
Yeah.
With Wire being gone, I think the depth behind them is not great at the moment, so they probably need 2, 3 bodies at safety. Cornerback, not so much. I think they're okay with the Chapman brothers and RJ Lester, who was out this year. That should be back next year. They should be okay even with the departures. Maybe adding one more body, maybe two, as depth would be great. But I think definitely pass rush and linebacker are your top two, and then right behind them is just finding a 1-for-1 replacement on the defensive line.
Are you comfortable keeping Michael Petro as UTSA's place kicker in 2026?
I mean, I think so, man. If you go look at the stats we were looking at it last night, he had a better year than the Tate Sandell did
He
last
did.
year. So, I mean, I'm sure we would want a little bit more distance out of him, like just to kind of
Hmm.
expanding his range. But in terms of accuracy, he was 85%. It's hard to ask for a college kicker, right, to be at those kind of percentages and be mad about it. So, yeah.
Yes, I totally agree. 85%, pretty fantastic. So Michael Petro, 17 for 20 on field goals for the year. Tate Sandell in 2024 kicks 19 for 23. So he gets a little more opportunities in those distant situations. Last night we saw an example of UTSA going for it on 4th and 11, right? And part of that is are you not trusting Petro's leg at that distance quite yet? But he does knock down a 37-yarder in the DFW conditions and was just consistent. He was really consistent kicking the ball. I have no issue with Michael Petro. I mean, I've been banging his drum all year long. I think he's kicked the ball really well. And if the offense can take care of those couple of snaps whenever you're not quite in range, which I think you do have that with this offense in those skill positions. Michael Pedro would be just fine continuing to kick the ball for UTSA in 2026. So I'm okay with it. Any other areas of concern for you, Javi, as we head into the offseason?
Well, right before you go on that, I'm seeing a tweet right now that's saying that UTSA tight end Houston Thomas is entering the transfer portal. So,
Wow.
we kind of saw it coming, right? I think Traylor kind of alluded to it, and he
Hmm.
participated in senior day activities. Um, well, even though he wasn't a senior, so that was kind of the writing was on the wall there. But sorry, what was the question? I literally just like saw that one come up on my feed.
Well, it was what other areas do you think we need to address or focus on in the offseason? And now does that make tight end one of them?
I think it might be honestly, the way that UTSA likes to use their tight ends. Another, if you're not comfortable with like Ty Roop, kind of coming up as a freshman, and playing, you might look for a pass catching tight end. Um, to kind of fill in that gap for Houston Thomas. But no, I mean, honestly, man, I think everything's at the defense. Whatever after you fill your holes, your critical holes on defense, it might just be like, hey, who's best available, right? To can kind of help us anywhere, right? Even if we already have a spot filled, this team needs talent and game breaking talent. And if it's out there, and if it fits the budget, I think you go after it, especially on defense.
Have to address the defense. Everything else might just fall into place once the defense is figured out. But yeah, Houston Thomas hurts, man. You know, we brought him up here, and he's kind of started to blossom underneath UTSA and Jeff Traylor's tutelage. But it's just one of those things, man, where you're going to lose him. It's just weird when you feel like we've had this tight end room that has been like enormous for the last couple of years, start to get depleted and now start to be an area of concern. But he was, I think, when it comes to your pass catching tight ends, without a doubt, far beyond the number one guy. I mean, Patrick Overmeyer started to catch up to him this year, but I mean, still not as consistent of hands as Houston Thomas was.
And and
Mm,
and that Dan Dishman's a graduating, right? So you're going to be down two tight ends at this point.
correct,
So yeah,
correct.
maybe you're right. Maybe it is finding another good tight end that can kind of go, 1-to-1 with Overmeyer.
And we had already seen Dan Dishman's involvement start to diminish here in 2025 because of Houston Thomas and Patrick Overmeyer starting to get better and get bigger, and not just the sure handedness, but also just the build out. Right, he's more of a route running tight end, whereas Patrick Overmeyer is the bigger body, where he can run routes for you, but he also does some of the dirty work. Houston Thomas was more of like that pure pass catching tight end. I mean, don't get me wrong, he did some dirty work when he needed to as well, but I mean that's really what he offered the roster. It's going to be a big one, Javi. So uh big dates for 2026. When does the transfer portal close for college football and UTSA Roadrunners?
So it's going to open, I believe, January 2nd, and it's going to close, I believe, on the 16th. So a couple weeks. That is going to stay open. So everything's going to happen really fast. That's I think that the big thing to know here is that you're going to hear all the names enter. Obviously, you've already seen, but between now and when the portal opens, and then the kids have, I say kids, but they're not kids anymore, I guess.
The guys,
The
yeah.
guys, the players are going to have pretty much 2 weeks to make their decision, take all their visits, do all that good stuff, and then the portal closes, right? It's one window, in theory, but who
Hmm.
knows, right? Things just change really quickly these days. So everything's gonna happen pretty much in a really quick span, and then there's gonna be another signing, their normal signing, the quote unquote normal signing day in February, where UTSA is gonna be able to sign JUCO high school guys, and then they're probably gonna announce for portal additions as well. So it's gonna be an action-packed January, and then obviously with everything being announced, that Wednesday, I believe, in February.
Do you have a preference of transfer portal versus JUCO slash high school signee for those big pillars that need to be moved, like front seven,
Yeah, I mean, I
pass rush
think,
linebacker?
yeah, I at the spots of a need, you need instant contributors. But if you can find like a high end 3-star high school kid that you can kind of develop, which again is controversial right now, right? Because you
Right.
develop them and then they leave. So would you rather spend money on somebody who's already kind of ready to go, or I think Traylor, they have a formula, right? I think you saw it in the signing class where how they're trying to kind of do like high end high schoolers, impact JUCOs and impact transfers. I think that's kind of the the playbook right now is how they're going to play it. So yeah, so impact transfers, impact JUCOs, and then high school kids that can come in and contribute in like a year or two because they're probably not going to stick
Hmm.
around after that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. The plight of the mid-major, right? A feeder team in a feeder league as we start to become more and more like professional sports here on the college landscape. Well, Javi, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down. Christmas came a day late for the UTSA Roadrunners, but it came in extraordinary fashion with some hardware at the end of the year and a lot of things to look forward to for UTSA Roadrunners. It's not all doom and gloom. It was not up to expectations, but we have a lot to be bullish, to be optimistic about for 2026. Now it's the offseason moves that have to happen. Uh, Hopefully, in the next couple of days, we get an offensive coordinator announcement, and maybe our immediate reaction will be for that. So stay tuned.
I
Burnt
will
up.
say Jared was keeping up with the game and halfway across the world. So, man, that's some dedication right there. Get you a VPN and watch the game halfway across the
Cambodia, I
world.
think it was streaming
That's what he
from.
said.
Really, really incredible stuff, man. Oh my goodness. Before we finish this off, 2025 would not be possible without the support from our Patreons. Big shout out to our board of trustees, Digiteek, John Otwell, Gary and Ruben representing the UTSA Bird Gang Tailgate, Ray Redding, Andy Elizalde and Proficient Benefit Solutions, Ian McLendon and Seeker LLC, Javon Townsend, president of the Dallas Fort Worth chapter of the UTSA Alumni Association, Waterman Construction, UTSA Annual Giving, Brandon Padron, UTSA King Bowser, Runners United, where you can support UTSA student athletes at www.goutsa.co. And the big money donors, of course, Mr. Ben Tovar, the Bunch family, Zach Espedicueta, the San Antonio Podcast Network, Alejandro Benavides, Dan Nerdahl, our host of Around the Bird Bath, which you will be getting a lot more episodes of as UTSA baseball draws nearer with our new video board. Jacob Cavazos, former board president for the UTSA Alumni Association, John Nally, Rick Cortez of Rowdy Road Grillers, Sumner McDaniel, Joe Rodriguez, UTSA grad at 1998, Russell Rincon, Brandy Dunnigan, realtor with the Social House Group, and Home Field Apparel, where you can still save 15% on your first order with the discount code UTSA Wants Home Field. Also, remember to check out the Alamo Audible Fan Shop. Thank you so very much for a fantastic year of UTSA athletics. We look forward to seeing you all in 2026. Happy New Year's, everybody.